The champagne flute shattered against marble, spraying glass across cream-colored tiles already stained with wine and malice. "Please stop. Don't do this," Arya whispered. Her wedding dress, ivory lace that had taken 8 months to handcraft, now soaked in red wine, the bodice torn at the shoulder where fingers had yanked too hard, too cruelly. Her sister Celeste stood above her, perfectly manicured hand still raised from the throw, her lips curved in a smile that belonged on magazine covers, not on someone destroying their own flesh and blood. Behind Celeste, 3 bridesmaids formed a wall of designer gowns and cold eyes, their phones out, recording. "Don't do what, exactly?" Celeste's voice dripped honey and poison in equal measure. "Don't tell everyone the truth about their precious bride? That you're nothing but a charity case who seduced my fiancé?" The ballroom of the Rosewood estate, where 200 guests waited in the garden for a ceremony that would never happen, had become a torture chamber. Arya's hands shook as she tried to gather the torn fabric of her dress, but Celeste's heel came down on the train, pinning her in place. "You really thought Marcus loved you?" Celeste laughed, and the bridesmaids echoed her like a chorus of ravens. "God, you're even more pathetic than I thought." Arya's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. "Not here, not for them, but we need to understand how paradise became hell." Arya Chen had always been the invisible sister. While Celeste commanded rooms with her presence, tall, blonde, perfectly composed, Arya preferred the quiet corners of their family's estate, losing herself in architectural sketches and restoration plans. Their father, Richard Chen, had built a real estate empire from nothing, and while Celeste had inherited his ruthless business sense, Arya had inherited his love for creating beauty. "You're too soft," Celeste would say, not unkindly, when they were younger. "The world will eat you alive if you don't learn to bite first." But Arya didn't want to bite. She wanted to build. Marcus Wellington had entered her life like sunlight through stained glass, unexpected and transformative. They'd met at a historic preservation conference in Boston, where Arya was presenting her thesis on adaptive reuse of 19th-century architecture. Marcus, a venture capitalist with a surprising passion for sustainable development, had approached her after her panel. "Your ideas are brilliant," he'd said, his gray eyes intense behind wire-rimmed glasses. "I'd like to invest in them, and maybe take you to dinner to discuss it further." 3 months of dinners became 3 months of falling helplessly, dangerously in love. Marcus was everything Arya had never dared to want. Brilliant, kind, genuinely interested in her work, her thoughts, her dreams. He listened when she talked about flying buttresses and load-bearing walls with the same fascination she felt when he explained impact investing and sustainable portfolios. "You see the world differently," he told her one night on Boston Harbor, the city lights reflected in dark water. "Most people look at old buildings and see demolition opportunities. You see souls worth saving." When he proposed on the anniversary of their first meeting, on one knee in the exact spot where he'd first asked her to dinner, Arya thought she'd finally found her place in the world. She was wrong. "You're marrying Marcus Wellington?" Celeste's voice had gone very quiet when Arya shared the news. They were in the sunroom of the family estate, surrounded by their mother's orchids. That quietness should have been a warning. "Yes. Can you believe it? He's Marcus Wellington, 6'2", Harvard business, gray eyes, scar on his left hand from a skiing accident in Aspen." Arya's stomach had dropped. "How do you know about the scar?" Celeste's smile was a blade. "Because he's my ex-fiancé, little sister, the one who broke our engagement 6 months ago. Said he wasn't ready for commitment." She examined her nails, each one perfect, each one a weapon. "Guess he just wasn't ready for commitment to me." The weeks that followed were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Celeste didn't rage or demand Arya end the relationship. Instead, she inserted herself into every wedding planning session, every family dinner, every moment of joy. "That dress makes you look washed out, sweetheart. Maybe try something with more structure? You need all the help you can get standing next to me as maid of honor." Marcus always preferred peonies over roses. "I should know. I planned our engagement party with them. Your venue is lovely, but isn't it a bit small?" When Marcus and I were together, he always talked about wanting a grand wedding. I suppose he's lowered his expectations. Each comment was a paper cut. Individually harmless, collectively lethal. Marcus noticed, tried to intervene. "Arya, we can elope. Forget the big wedding. I don't need any of this. I just need you." But Arya, desperate to prove she wasn't the invisible sister anymore, that she deserved this happiness, refused to back down. I'm not letting her chase me away from my own wedding. Pride, she would learn, was the most expensive luxury of all. The bridal shower was the first blood in the water. Celeste had insisted on hosting it at the country club, her territory, her rules. Arya had arrived to find 50 women arranged in the garden pavilion, champagne flowing, gifts piled high. Everything looked perfect, until the games began. Let's play How Well Do You Know the Groom, Celeste announced, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. I'll ask questions about Marcus, and Arya can answer. For every one she gets wrong, she takes a drink. The questions started innocuously enough. Favorite color, favorite food. But Celeste had orchestrated something far more cruel. What's Marcus's mother's maiden name? What year did Marcus graduate from Harvard? What's the name of Marcus's childhood dog? Question after question that Arya couldn't answer, while Celeste's eyes gleamed with each failure. The champagne kept flowing. The room's sympathy curdled into uncomfortable laughter. Last question, Celeste said, leaning forward like a shark sensing blood. What's Marcus's biggest regret? Silence fell across the pavilion. Arya's head spun from champagne and humiliation, but she knew this answer would hurt her however she responded. I don't know, she whispered. Really? Because when he was engaged to me, he told me his biggest regret was not fighting harder for his first love, a girl named Elena Rodriguez from college. Celeste paused, savoring the moment. Did he ever mention her to you? He hadn't. The guest's pitying looks felt like acid on Arya's skin. She'd excused herself to the bathroom and spent 20 minutes vomiting champagne and pride into an Italian marble toilet, while somewhere in the distance, Celeste's laughter echoed like breaking glass. But that was just the beginning. The week before the wedding, Celeste had shown up at Arya's apartment with 3 friends, Veronica, Madison, and Claire, the bridesmaids who treated Celeste like a queen and Arya like a stain on expensive upholstery. Wedding week celebration, Celeste announced, pushing past Arya into the loft space. We're taking you out. No arguments. They'd taken her to Marcus's favorite restaurant, the one where he and Celeste used to have a standing Friday reservation. The staff had greeted Celeste by name, asked how she'd been, carefully avoided looking at Arya. Overpriced pasta and wine Arya didn't want. Celeste had waxed poetic about her relationship with Marcus. Every story a knife expertly placed. He used to write me poetry. Bad poetry, admittedly, but the thought was sweet. Has he done that for you? We had this game where we'd try to make each other laugh during serious moments. Once, during a board meeting, he sent me a text that was so filthy I snorted wine through my nose in front of his investors. The sex was incredible. I mean, incredible. That thing he does with his... Oh, sorry. I probably shouldn't talk about that. I'm sure you two have your own special moments. Each memory was a theft, reducing Arya's relationship to a pale imitation of what came before. By the time dinner ended, Arya felt like a ghost at her own life. Would you have stood your ground or walked away? She asked herself this every night, lying awake beside Marcus, wondering if love was supposed to feel like drowning. The morning of the wedding, Arya had woken with a text from an unknown number. A photo. Marcus and Celeste, 6 months ago, outside a hotel. The timestamp said 2 months after Marcus had proposed to Arya. The accompanying message. Ask him about the investor dinner in March. Ask him who he really went with. A friend. Arya's hands had shaken so badly she dropped her phone. But there was no time to process, no time to think. Hair, makeup, photographers. The machine of the wedding day had started, and she was swept along in its momentum. She'd tried to call Marcus. It went to voicemail. She'd tried again. Voicemail. By the time she reached the bridal suite at the Rosewood estate, doubt had grown into full-blown panic. That's when Celeste had arrived with the bridesmaids. You're trembling, Celeste observed, closing the door to the bridal suite with a soft click that sounded like a coffin ceiling. Cold feet? Or guilty conscience? Arya clutched her phone, the photo still glowing on the screen. What is this? What were you doing with Marcus in March? Celeste's laugh was genuine delight. Oh, that. Madison, you sent her the photo? Madison, a tall brunette with the empathy of a shark, smirked. Thought she deserved to know the truth on her wedding day. It's only fair. That was the investor dinner, Celeste explained, examining her reflection in the floor-length mirror. Marcus needed my help securing funding for one of his sustainable housing projects. He was too embarrassed to tell you he needed his ex-fiancée's connections. She met Arya's eyes in the mirror. But nothing happened, if that's what you're worried about. We just talked about old times, and how much he missed them. You're lying. Am I? Celeste turned, and her smile was pure venom. Call him. Ask him yourself. Oh wait, he's not answering, is he? Probably getting cold feet too. Can't blame him. He's downgrading from a Ferrari to a bicycle. Stop it. Arya's voice cracked. Stop what? Stop telling you what everyone's thinking? That you're not good enough for him? That this whole wedding is a joke? Celeste stepped closer, her bridesmaids forming a semicircle around Arya. Do you know what the guests are saying out there? They're taking bets on how long the marriage will last. Over-under is 18 months. Veronica, a redhead with a voice like broken bottles, added, My money's on 6 months, once the novelty of slumming it wears off. Claire, the quietest but somehow cruelest of the three, held up her phone. The group chat from last night's rehearsal dinner is brutal. Want me to read some highlights? Please do, Celeste encouraged. Does she know her dress makes her look like a cream puff? Claire read, her voice cheerful. Poor Marcus. He looks miserable. Give it a year before he's back with Celeste where he belongs. I can't believe Richard Chen's letting his daughter marry her sister's leftovers. Each quote hit like a physical blow. Arya's breathing became shallow, rapid. The room tilted. You should have stayed in your lane, Celeste said softly, almost kindly. You were happy drawing your little buildings, weren't you? Playing in your sandbox while the adults did real work? But no, you had to reach for something that was never meant for you. Marcus loves me. Marcus loves the idea of you. The project. The fixer-upper. Celeste picked up the champagne bottle from the ice bucket, considering it. You're like one of your precious old buildings, structurally unsound, requiring too much work, destined for demolition. That's when she'd thrown the champagne. Not the glass, the whole bottle. It had hit Arya's chest, exploded against the hand-beaded bodice, red wine flooding across white lace like blood. Arya had stumbled backward, slipped, fallen. Her dress tore as Madison's heel caught the train. Before she could rise, Veronica had knocked over the makeup table, sending powder and perfume cascading over her. Oops, Veronica said flatly. This is what you get, Celeste hissed, crouching down to Arya's level, her perfectly made-up face twisted with rage that had been simmering for months. You don't take what's mine. You don't steal my life and think you'll get away with it. She grabbed Arya's hair, the updo that had taken 2 hours, and yanked hard enough to tear out pins. Arya cried out, and Celeste's hand came across her face in a slap that echoed in the high-ceilinged room. So weak, Celeste breathed. So pathetic. Marcus will realize his mistake the second he sees you like this. If he even shows up. The bridesmaids' phones captured every moment, every tear, every torn piece of lace, every humiliation carefully documented for posterity. Please, Arya whispered, and hated herself for begging. Please stop. Don't do this. Don't do what, exactly? Celeste had straightened, smoothing her maid of honor dress. Don't tell everyone the truth about their precious bride? That you're nothing but a charity case who seduced my fiancé? That's when she'd pinned Arya's dress under her heel. You really thought Marcus loved you? The door to the bridal suite burst open. Richard Chen stood in the doorway, his face carved from stone. Behind him, Marcus looked like a man witnessing an execution. The tableau froze. Celeste with her heel on Arya's dress, the bridesmaids with their phones out. Arya on the floor surrounded by broken glass and spilled wine, her face marked with a red handprint, her dress destroyed. Dad, Celeste started. Don't. Richard's voice could have cut diamonds. Don't say a single word. He'd been looking for Arya to tell her the pianist was ready. He'd heard raised voices. He'd opened the door to witness his eldest daughter's final, vicious blow. Marcus moved first, crossing the room in 3 strides, dropping to his knees beside Arya. Oh God, Arya, I'm so sorry. I should have been here. I should have. You should have what? Celeste's voice rose, desperate now. Protected her from the truth? She doesn't belong in our world, Marcus. I was doing you a favor. Our world? Richard's voice was soft now, which was infinitely more terrifying than shouting. What world is that, Celeste? The one where you destroy your own sister on her wedding day. She stole nothing. Marcus stood, and the rage in his voice made everyone step back. We broke up because you cheated on me with that hedge fund manager from Connecticut. I never told anyone because I didn't want to humiliate you publicly. But you couldn't stand that I moved on. That I found someone genuine and kind and everything you pretend to be. Celeste's face went white, then red. That's not. I have the receipts, Marcus continued, pulling out his phone. Hotel records, credit card statements, text messages I saved. Should I share them? Post them right here, like you were about to post that video of Arya? Madison's phone clattered to the floor. The investor dinner in March? Marcus's laugh was bitter. I needed funding, yes, but not from you. From your father's company. I went through proper channels and spoke to the development team. We happened to be leaving the same building. That photo makes it look like something it wasn't, which is exactly what you intended. Richard moved into the room, each step deliberate. Celeste, you will delete every photo, every video from this room. All of you. He turned his gaze to the bridesmaids, who suddenly looked like children caught stealing. Every single file. Now, Mr. Chen, Veronica began. Do you think they'll get away with it? The question hung in the air like a sword. Phones came out. Fingers moved frantically. Delete, delete, delete. But Richard wasn't finished. Arya. Stand up, sweetheart. Marcus helped her rise, his arm around her waist, supporting her weight. The wine-soaked dress dripped onto the ruined carpet. Arya's face was swollen from crying, marked from Celeste's hand, but she lifted her chin. I'm sorry, Richard said, his voice cracking. I'm so sorry I didn't see what she was doing to you, that I let this happen under my own roof. Dad, she's manipulating you, Celeste tried. You're fired. Silence. What? Celeste's voice was barely a whisper. From Chen Development. Effective immediately. I'll have security clear your office by end of business today. Richard's face was implacable. You're also removed from the family trust, the board of directors, and any financial holdings under my control. You can't. I can. And I am. He turned to the bridesmaids. Leave. Now. If I see any of you near my daughter again, I'll ensure every country club, every social organization, every professional network you're part of knows exactly what you did here today. They fled like rats from a sinking ship. Celeste stood alone in her maid of honor dress, her perfect makeup starting to run, her world crumbling around her. This isn't fair. She doesn't deserve. Fair? Arya's voice was hoarse but strong. You want to talk about fair? You've spent 6 months torturing me. Every dress fitting where you said I looked fat. Every venue visit where you talked about your memories with Marcus. Every family dinner where you made me feel like an outsider in my own home. She stepped forward, away from Marcus's supporting arm, standing on her own. You made me doubt myself. Doubt Marcus. Doubt that I deserved love or happiness. You almost convinced me I was nothing. Arya's voice grew stronger with each word. But you know what? I'm not nothing. I'm a talented architect. I'm a good person. And I'm loved by someone who chose me. Not because I'm some project to fix, but because of who I am. She turned to her father. I can't get married today. Not like this, but not because of her. She looked at Marcus. Because I need time. Time to remember who I am without someone else's poison in my head. Marcus nodded, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Whatever you need. I'll wait as long as it takes. Arya turned back to Celeste one final time. You wanted to destroy me because you thought I stole your life. But you destroyed yourself. And that's something I can't fix. The days that followed were a surgical dismantling of Celeste's existence. Richard Chen didn't just fire his daughter. He erased her professionally. Every business contact, every investor relationship, every carefully cultivated connection she'd used to build her position was severed. In the ruthless world of New York real estate development, word spread like wildfire. Celeste Chen was toxic. The country club where she'd hosted the bridal shower? They revoked her membership after Richard made a single phone call and threatened to withdraw his substantial annual donation. Veronica, Madison, and Claire found themselves similarly exiled from the social circles they'd treasured. But Marcus's revenge was more creative. He'd kept those receipts, the evidence of Celeste's affair, and while he didn't post them publicly, he sent them to the hedge fund manager's wife. She, in turn, had filed for divorce and named Celeste in the proceedings. The tabloids, always hungry for scandal, picked up the story. Real estate heiress caught in cheating scandal was considerably less glamorous than the image Celeste had cultivated. The investors Marcus had been courting for his sustainable housing project? They pulled their backing from Celeste's competing development, a luxury condo project that was her last remaining professional anchor. Without funding, the project collapsed. The debt she'd personally guaranteed bankrupted her. Within 3 months, Celeste had lost her apartment, a gift from the family trust she no longer had access to, her car, leased through the company she'd been fired from, and her reputation, destroyed by her own cruelty, captured on security cameras, because of course the Rosewood estate had cameras in the hallways, which had caught the bridesmaids' discussion before entering the suite, planning the whole attack. But perhaps the cruelest consequence was the silence. Richard Chen didn't shout, didn't rage, he simply stopped acknowledging Celeste's existence. No returned calls, no meetings, no negotiations. She'd been erased from the family as thoroughly as a pencil mark from a blueprint. Veronica, Madison, and Claire faced their own reckonings. Veronica lost her job at an investment firm after the video clips leaked despite their deletions. Someone had synced to the cloud before Richard's command. Madison's wedding was called off when her fiancé saw the footage of her participating in the attack. Claire was quietly removed from several nonprofit boards after donors learned of her involvement. Arya spent the first month after the wedding that wasn't in a rental cottage on Martha's Vineyard, alone. No phone calls from Marcus, though he sent a single letter each week. Never pushing, never demanding. Just there. She drew, walked the beaches, slowly remembered who she was before Celeste's psychological warfare had twisted her into someone who questioned her own worth. Marcus was waiting when she came back. Not at her apartment, he was too smart for that. But at the Historic Preservation Conference where they'd first met, exactly 1 year after that first conversation. "Your ideas are still brilliant," he said when she approached him after her panel, this one on trauma-informed architecture, how buildings could be designed to promote healing. "I'd still like to invest in them. And maybe take you to dinner to discuss it further?" Arya smiled. A real smile. "I think I'd like that." They married 6 months later in a small ceremony with only 20 people. No bridesmaids, no elaborate production. Just two people who'd chosen each other, survived the fire, and emerged stronger. Richard Chen walked his daughter down the aisle, and if anyone noticed the empty seat where Celeste should have been, nobody mentioned it. The Chen Center for Architectural Preservation opened to considerable fanfare. Arya's design, a restored 1890s factory transformed into a teaching facility and workshop space, was featured in Architectural Digest. Marcus's sustainable investment firm had funded the project entirely. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, a reporter asked Arya about her estranged sister. "Some people see old buildings and see demolition opportunities," Arya said, echoing words Marcus had once said to her. "They think destruction is the same as progress. But I've learned that the strongest structures are the ones that survive fire. That bend but don't break. That take damage and transform it into something beautiful." She didn't mention Celeste by name. She didn't need to. Celeste herself watched the ceremony from a coffee shop across the street, her reflection ghostly in the window. She was working as a property manager now, entry-level, grinding work, a million miles from the executive suite she'd lost. She'd tried to reach out to Arya once, through a mutual acquaintance. The message had come back through the same channel. "Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Work on yourself. Maybe someday you'll understand what you destroyed, and why." In the coffee shop, Celeste's phone buzzed with another rejection email. Another job application declined. Her reputation preceded her everywhere in their industry. She watched Arya, glowing, successful, surrounded by people who genuinely loved her, and understood, perhaps for the first time, what she'd lost. Not Marcus, not status or money or social position. She'd lost her sister. And that was the one thing money couldn't buy back. Arya kept one memento from that wedding day. A photograph her father had taken in the bridal suite after everyone else had left. She's on the floor in her ruined dress, mascara streaked, surrounded by broken glass. But her chin is lifted. Her eyes are clear. And if you look closely, you can see the exact moment she stopped being a victim and became a survivor. It hangs in her office now, in a simple black frame. When young architects come to her with their own stories of being undermined, of doubting themselves, of facing cruelty disguised as criticism, she shows them the photograph. "This was my lowest moment," she tells them, "when I thought I'd lost everything. But you know what I learned?" They always lean forward, eager for wisdom. In the end, arrogance crumbles, but dignity survives. The people who try to destroy you often destroy themselves. Your job isn't revenge. It's remembering who you are when everyone else has forgotten. Building something beautiful from the rubble they leave behind. She pauses, smiles. And if that building happens to cast them in permanent shadow? Well, That's just good architectural planning. What would you have done in this situation? Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something so magnificent that those who tried to tear you down can only watch from the outside, faces pressed against the glass, finally understanding what they threw away. And sometimes, the girl they thought would break becomes the woman who builds empires.